Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Royal Watcher podcast. I'm Saad Salman, the fan editor of the Royal Watcher, Royal commentator, and a Royal contributor for Elle.com.
And I'm Sam Gillespie. I have a background in fine jewellery and a passion for historical pieces.
And today we're excited to introduce two really special guests.
We are Zuleika and Oliver Gerrish. So Zuleika, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, hi, I'm Zuleika. I have a background in with art history. My father was an art dealer, and I kind of fell accidentally into jewellery, being that I married Oliver and his mother was an art dealer, but very much I've always loved jewellery and been fascinated. I mean, many girls love tiaras and everything, and I always have. And then Oliver's a
Well, I'm an architectural historian. Background is also I'm a countertenor singer, and I work with the business which Zuleika set up, our own business, Parkin and Gerrish, 14 months ago as antique jewellery online business. So that's sort of us in a nutshell, I hope.
I know, and I'm a fully trained gemologist, and so kind of put the history of art into jewellery historian, I guess you could say.
It's a marvelous combination for people.
Thank you. Well, we follow so much what you do with the Royal Watcher. It's fascinating to see the amazing stories that you uncover and bring more light onto these beautiful bits of art, these miniature works of art, the wonderful jewellery, which we're so lucky to see occasionally worn by all these amazing people.
Definitely, thank you. So I think you both really come from quite interesting families, and I've been following you both for the past couple of years now. And I think it was a few years ago that I saw Zuleika wearing this really lovely bandeau tiara. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, that's my great grandmother paste tiara. But it's just such a clever effect because you would generally just wearing it, even in the picture on the left, you would just presume it's just the lovely diamond tiara, and it sits on the head like a sort of, I guess you could say,
It's a bandeau, isn't it?
A bandeau, yeah. And it's just, it's very clever, and I'm a great fan of paste jewelry because you can be so clever with the effect.
And that picture on the left, I think that must be at court in London. Well, it would have been, but they actually were out before that in St. Petersburg, and so she would have needed jewelry that travelled as well. And so I think this set, there's the tiara is paste, and then there's a necklace which is there's pearls, and there's a little diamond necklace and a diamond brooch. And then the bracelet is actually gold, which we have.
Lovely. And they're all part of the same kind of collection that she used to take with her.
They're all quite different, actually. I think the earrings are actually those long drop ones.
I think they're ivory.
Ivory. And then there's a pearl necklace, a diamond pendant, a diamond brooch, and a gold and blue enamel.
So easily. You took it to Sweden, I believe, for a wedding.
Yes, Zuleika wore it to Sweden to a wedding here. Which was in white tie, and we the British don't often get the chance to sort of go to something where they say tiaras, and if they do, there normally isn't one. And luckily, Zuleika was very, very lucky to be loaned it to wear, and so she wore it with actually a brooch that's on the stock, and also a pendant, lovely Goldsmiths Company pendant. And yes, so it was very effective actually, and it sparkled a lot on the dance floor. So you can see on the right, it's being worn by actually a dear friend of ours, Martha, Lady Sitwell, and she's wearing it there with some earrings, which also can be clips, and with a diamond brooch and a diamond necklace, and that was taken on a wonderful day in a great 1820s glass conservatory at Zion House. But it's a very effective, and it's got a lovely sort of translucent effect because it's the stones, the paste is set very, very finely in this sort of comb effect, and it's a lovely thing, isn't it? It's very effective.
And it's so light on the head and everything, because there's some tiaras when you wear them they are very heavy, and it's such a pretty effect. It suits Martha really well. But I would love eventually to be able to sell tiaras, but we haven't quite fun one. We like, yeah.
We've not reached that level either yet. So.
I think there's a bit of a limited market for that.
Yes, perhaps, but apparently they're selling more and more. I mean, goodness knows who's buying them, but they are apparently.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with the King's coronation, we'll see lots of them.
Oh yes,
People buying tiaras, hopefully. And so on the picture on the right, so two of those jewels are your personal collection, but the earrings and the brooch you just mentioned, they're for sale in your store.
Yes, they are actually, and then they're both from the 50s actually. And so the earrings are lovely because they can sort of act almost like a double clip as well. I mean that you can pin them to actually Henry Conway, one of our models and a great friend, actually pinned one to his cuff, and then but you can of course put them on a lapel or that, and then the little brooch itself is a lovely little floral spray, which I think is it was the sort of the go-to thing, I suppose, back in ladies' jewelry collections back in the day, and brooches I think are coming back into fashion, and that's quite a pretty one actually.
It looks great on a men's jacket as well.
It does.
Yes. No, it looks so lovely, and I think we'll see later on, for those watching on YouTube, you'll have pictures of it being worn as earrings and on a men's jacket.
Absolutely.
Keep in tune for that. And then, so you had this tiara from your grandmother, but for your wedding, Zuleika, you wore another piece, which was made using pieces from Oliver's family.
Yeah, this one's quite interesting because actually it was a few bits and bobs that have been put together by Andrew Prince.
Yes.
So it's a brooch, some side clips, and a pair of earrings. And Andrew Prince is amazing. He does all the costume jewelry for Downton Abbey.
He made Miss Piggy's tiara.
I know, I love that one. That's one of literally my favourite parts is the fact that he made her wedding tiara.
And actually, what's extraordinary? So he took a brooch of my grandmother's, which she'd had made into a brooch. I think she got a big aquamarine from Brazil and had a surround put around it and diamonds, which from something else, and then her little clips on the end, and then this big clip in the middle, and actually it was just a way of he put it on this very clever frame, which actually, when it's just the frame, looks like a sort of piece of modernist design. It's rather amazing actually. And then the other aquamarine Zuleika's wearing, that's something we bought. And the earrings were made for my grandmother's wedding by her. Her mother had them made from some diamonds, which she had. So yeah, so that was quite nice. And
it's beautiful. I remember I was searching through your Instagram while looking for a few pictures today, and I saw your grandmother wearing those earrings, and they just looked absolutely lovely. And it's great to see them being passed on.
Yes, well, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just nice occasionally when they're sort of not hidden away in the bank, that actually they're worn. So it's very nice to see them.
I know, but you will also notice that on my wedding day, I'm wearing the tiara far too far back, and it's actually crooked on to the side.
Then there's a reason for this, because Zuleika's studied cake making before Gemmology, and she's a professional cake maker as well. And so the cake took so long to make, and it was about 4.5 feet tall, that she forgot really to finish getting dressed. So
I know most brides get ready, tiaras all morning. I had literally half an hour to have hair, makeup, dress, everything done before. Otherwise, I'd be really late.
Yes.
So, and it's a funny thing when you have your hair done. I'm not one of those people who gets the hair done with the tiara, and so I wasn't really paying attention of where the tiara was being put in. I was just, you sit there in a chair and you've got the hairdresser behind you and playing with your hair and putting in the tiara and making sure it's pinned in. And it's quite a heavy tiara, so it did swing when it was straight. I promise you, when I walked down the aisle.
No, they can be very difficult tiaras. I think there's the Queen of Sweden did a documentary recently, and there was literally about 15 minutes where her hairdresser had to go through the machinations of what it takes to wear a tiara in your hair, and actually the actual mechanics of it is fascinating.
Well, some of those things, I think someone just pointed out that actually they are a load of stones. I mean, those big, massive things that people wear, like the Devonshire diadem, or I don't know, some of the really big ones. What the Braganza? Is it the some great Swedish tiara?
Yes, Braganza.
Yeah, the Braganza, and some of these other enormous ones, like the Stuart tiara.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God, that must
God,
be so heavy.
they must be absolute hell.
Yeah, I mean, they do have sort of these velvet frames at the bottom, but even they can't give much relief. But yeah,
But
the
you sort of
price you
wonder,
pay for
we
tiaras.
wonder whether it's for the wearer's benefit or the people viewing it. And I think it's for the spouse's enjoyment and the guests, really, because actually you feel very proud, when you see your other half wearing any piece of lovely jewelry, which you've either saved up for it, or it may belong to granny or something, whatever it might be. So actually, I feel sorry for the ladies who wear these. And of course, some men probably wear tiaras now as well. But I think generally it's the ladies, probably. Certainly in the culture in Britain anyway, but I think elsewhere in the world, men wear crowns and goodness knows what.
Definitely. So with this tiara, how much time does it take to kind of assemble it all together? Can you add the pieces yourself onto the frame, or do you need to go back to a jeweler for that?
No, it's very, very quick to do. It clips on, clips off.
It's amazing.
It's incredible design.
It's just a very simple frame with literally just pings that go up, and then there's some that goes slightly to the side where the brooch can clip on, and then so the safety. But it's so secure. It's I mean, I cannot recommend
Andrew Prince as a jeweler is wonderful. I mean, just because and he's very, very clever, and he thinks about jewelry in a very original way, and he's like you both. He's a historian as well. He knows about jewelry.
Yes. No, his Instagram account is just fascinating, with like so much amazing stuff.
Well, he's the man who wears tiaras, so there we go.
He does. Yes. He definitely wears tiaras, and he's amazing when you meet him, because he sits you down and he starts talking, and then he's immediately like, right, I know exactly the kind of tiara that's going to suit you with your shape, basis of your shape and everything, and it is amazing.
He is amazing. Yeah.
He did a wonderful job, and you carried it off very wonderfully.
Well, I was very proud. Zuleika looked very, very beautiful.
Oh.
And so the aquamarine pendant, you said you acquired it yourself. What era is that from?
That is probably from around 1910. It's probably a Siberian aquamarine, the pendant, and it could perhaps be Russian. I mean, the design.
It's got a very beautiful, which is, I mean, it's always very hard. It's like one of those things a lot of dealers do, when they go, oh, it's like a dark sapphire, so it must be Australian, and it's a sort of certain colour sapphire. It's a nice cornflower blue, so it must be Sri Lankan, and dark witch blue velvet one must be Burma. It's like aquamarine slightly fall in the same thing, and the fact that if they go slightly greeny blue, there's still obviously that aquamarine blue, but when they have that hue of green in them, it's like the presumption that it must be sort of Russian. And then if it's a very, very, like, I think you can see in the photo with the wedding tiara, it's like very strong, amazing
that's
blue.
Brazilian,
then it must be Brazilian. And then so you do get that sort of like, whether it's you take it to a physical lab and get it tested to prove where it's from, but I don't know. I think the pendant possibly could be Russian, maybe.
Yes, perhaps. But we don't know, sadly.
No, but the pendant itself, I think, is maybe Canadian, actually, or maybe something.
Well, it was. We know it was retailed in Canada.
Yeah, it comes in its lovely little original box. I get so excited when you buy jewelry with the original box. I find there's something so sad when something that's been so beautifully made, and the boxes were so equally beautifully made, beautifully molded, and you just lose the box or something, and they're like, oh, I don't know where it is, and I'm just like, you don't know, this is the provenance.
Yeah, especially the old boxes.
Oh yeah,
I actually collect them.
A few months ago, my mother and my grandmother were out buying some jewelry, and the jeweler offered us a very lovely velvet-lined case to take all the pieces in, and they refused because they're like, no, it's going to cause so much attention that we're coming out the jewelers with all these boxes. So they just rolled it up in a tissue paper and put them inside their purse. And so I was like, that's just like a pity because like that box would have been like the original kind of. We couldn't have put the jewels in it, we could have carried it or anything. But they're like, no, it draws too much attention, so throw the box away.
Oh,
It's a
that's a shame.
That
Well,
really,
They could have posted it to you later.
They could have done. And I know
Yeah.
we when we started our business, we tried very hard to make sure the boxes were beautiful and something which, you know, people might hold on to. And I think it's also part of the magic of it. In the past, you know, people would buy a lovely thing, and you forget that most of us, you know, when we buy a piece of jewelry like an engagement ring or a present, it's a really big financial undertaking, you know, and a lovely box is part of it. You know?
Yes, no, 100%. I've worked for a few independent jewelers who are very much focused on the presentation, you know, whether it be, you know, how you present the ring to the client, how you sell to the client, and especially, like you say, the packaging and the boxes and the, you know, the bag that it goes in. And I can understand Saad's mother and grandmother why they would roll it up and put it in their bag for security reasons. But it, like what we say, it is a shame because so much thought does go into these things.
Yeah. No,
and then one of my questions is, do you think that the piece would be damaged if it's not in the like the box that was made for it? Because like for us, a lot of our family jewelry is just like rolled up in bags and tissues and stuff like that. Because the bank vault is not wide enough to hold all the big boxes for all the purrs and everything. So you just kind of have to make do and fit them all into smaller kind of safe boxes. Where and all like the boxes are at home in a cabinet somewhere.
I mean, it
But,
depends
like,
what the stones are and what the gold is, because, you know, the higher the gold quality, you know, if you're going for like 22 karat gold, it's very, very soft. So as long as it's not sort of rubbing up against something else, or it could possibly be dented. I mean, a nice sort of flat velvet pouch would probably be suitable.
Yes.
I have a case I got from Emirates First Class, and that's what I have for my mom's like jewelry. And but every time I go, because I'm the only one that operates the bank vault, there's some earring that's broken up or some pendant that's broken off, and like it's not been disturbed, it's not been but just sitting there for years on end, and just breaks off.
Well, it's some of these stones, you know, some like emeralds and things are so delicate, aren't they? And I think, you know, again, it comes to the when there's a lot of jewelry floating around, you know, like if you're a dealer or something, you know, you do have to pack it away tightly. But for most people, again, a piece of jewelry is such a special purchase that actually the box is a very good helmet or sort of armor for it.
Very much so.
And especially if it's fitted to the box as well, so it can't actually physically move around.
I know, and I've just got these, you know, these wonderful images of once upon a time of a lot of people who used to travel with just the jewelry case.
Yes.
Well, very wealthy people would, yes. I think most people.
I mean, nobody does that anymore for slightly security reasons, I think. You know.
Well, the great thing about jewelry, and if you wear it well, you don't know what it's made of. You might you look $1 million wearing a £12 pair of earrings. Who cares?
Look at what Kate wore.
No, so one of my gripes from last night about those earrings.
What were they made of? Who were they made
of? They're Zara earrings.
$15.99 earrings.
Goodness.
They're on eBay for 110, I think, at the moment.
I bet they are now, yeah.
Well,
do you travel with like a traveling box, or is it just tucked in somewhere?
So Zuleika travels with a load of jewelry which we bought in duty free at Folkestone, and it all looks real. Each piece was about £15, and that's what Zuleika wears, isn't it?
I've even wore some of yours when we went to Austria.
Beautiful pair of earrings.
They look like deco. And actually, who we were with, they were convinced.
They thought they were real.
They were convinced. I had to keep telling them they were,
because they're set so beautifully and they look so effective. So
wonderful. Those should hopefully be on sale soon, and
well, very special. We could recommend them more. They're really lovely. And they're beautifully made on the back as well.
They're very clever how they go up the ear almost.
Yes, and I think you can wear them in different kind of configurations. I know my mom wears them kind of facing downwards at times.
Right.
When she feels like they should, if she's wearing her hair down a bit, because otherwise she feels they aren't shown off enough. So I like that you can play around a bit with them.
You absolutely, and people, it's very funny. You can tell people are trying to have a jolly good look at something, aren't they? Sometimes, and Zuleika always goes. She says that jewelry is the perfect conversation starter. It's something on our website we always say, because actually, if you do say to someone, "Oh, I love your earrings," people do want to talk about it.
Usually, guys.
It does.
Because otherwise, you go to those drinks parties. It's sort of like, so what do you do? And you might
children.
You might be talking to someone who doesn't have a job, and then that sort of
then it's a really awkward start. But if you say, "Oh, I love your necklace," "Oh, well, that was given to you by such and such," or whatever it might be, it's such a personal thing, jewelry, isn't it?
Very much. Well, it beats talking about the weather. Put it that way.
Exactly. Far more sparkling.
Jewelry is my favorite conversation starter anywhere.
Really? I can't imagine that. Surely not.
That's what I'm known for with myself.
Well, you are. It's very good indeed.
No, so this is lovely, and I think you both have such kind of wonderful family heirlooms. And Oliver, kind of every time you go visit some house or you post on your wonderful Instagram account, which I recommend everyone go follow, I'm amazed at how your family has some link to almost all of the houses that you visit somehow.
Well, that makes it sound very smart. I think it's just me boring on about family history, because actually, at the moment, any of us look into our family history, sort of, you can find connections to things, and of course, the classic thing about anyone sort of looking into their family history, they only pick up on the interesting people or the ones with a nice house or something, and there's hundreds of other people who are probably very worthy and interesting but aren't glamorous, and you ignore them. So it's very funny family history. But I had a very sort of glamorous grandmother. One of them, actually both glamorous. One was quite a famous writer, my other grandmother, and she was not into jewelry really, but I mean, she wore big rings like Edith Sitwell, and she didn't like diamonds and things. She loved her amber beads and smaller things, and she had a lovely peridot diamond bracelet and things. But my other grandmother, the one in the picture here, she was presented at court and things, and her mother.
A picture.
Yes, that's a picture of her in 1936.
When Norman
Hartnell designed the dress, and it was in those unfortunate courts. The Edward VIII, who abdicated, had these afternoon courts just for a very short while, and so all these young girls were presented in the afternoon. Apparently, it rained so badly on one of these days.
Well, she looks absolutely thrilled to be there.
She looks very cross, and it rained so badly that actually he said. He went back indoors, said, "Consider yourself presented." But you see in both these pictures, she's wearing the pearls and a ruby ring in the picture on the left. And the portrait painter Cowan Dobson was very well known for not painting arms well, and so actually one of those arms is painted not well. So he put this funny gauze thing over her. But she loved jewelry. She played around with jewelry. She remodeled things, much to the annoyance probably of purists. And she came from that generation of those types of women who had quite a lot of jewelry and enjoyed wearing it and had the reason to wear it a lot. They were often wearing black tie or something like that, and I think she enjoyed it very much, actually.
Yeah, she probably had the same as my granny had. Is they like once a week you would have someone come to your house to re-alterate or sew something up, and it might be to move the cuffs from one dress onto another dress or something. And it was just they're from the generation of from the war. It's about reusing things we have.
Well, I think she was a bit naughty in that way. I mean, she'd have dresses by Schiaparelli and Hartnell, obviously, but Hardy, Amos, she always would have, and God knows what happened to all these things. I think there would have just been, and the most awful thing was if you went to a party and someone was wearing something the same, because it shouldn't have happened, because whichever designer it was should not be giving the same type of dress to someone else. And so it was that sort of thing. And I think you were expected in those days, in the 50s and 60s, whether you had quite a lot of money or not, people dressed beautifully. And so you would alter things or you'd get new things. And sadly, they did throw a lot of these garments out. And we recently went to this Schiaparelli exhibition in Paris, which was amazing to see these extraordinary garments kept there. But yes, no, so she had an interest in jewelry, and I think she loved it, actually. And the sense, I wish I could ask her, what she liked most. And now we're involved in that world. But yes. interesting person.
No, thank you so much for sharing. She sounds like such a fascinating person. Reminds me quite a bit of my grandmother, who kind of comes from a similar kind of value system of reusing clothes and wearing lots of jewelry.
Well, this granny actually, funny enough, she spent most of her happiest times on a parade ground or in the field with her Jersey cows. She was one of the champion Jersey breeders. She beat the Queen once or twice at the Royal Show. She was a tremendous farmer, really. So she was just as happy, if not happier, with a cow in a field covered in mud than she was in a drawing room, with a cigarette in hand, and a gin and French in the other, and sparkling away. So I think that generation were a bit like that. They'd seen great sadness, and they with the war and everything, and afterwards they partied, and she was also a debutante during the war. So between the wars, in those roaring sort of 30s, where suddenly again everyone was playing very hard again. And so I would have loved to have spoken to her and learned more about those times from her. But sadly not. Sadly, you can't go back in time, but you can imagine.
Shame, but you have all these wonderful photos and stories of her. That's amazing.
But it's nice. I mean, the number of people who don't have pictures of their grandparents, a lot of them, because a lot of people didn't keep things.
No.
Or have many photos, and people are fascinated to know about their sort of.
Yes, and oftentimes it's too late when you do become interested in these things to ask them what happened.
Often it's literally a shoebox full of old photographs, which someone says, "Oh yeah, I threw those out." Like what? All those old pictures? Oh, it's just awful.
I should just at this point just say to those who don't know my husband, I've married someone who, at the end of the day, when most people sit down and you start watching, I don't know how you relax, watch Netflix or something, he actually sincerely enjoys looking up his family history and gets the greatest pleasure.
Well, it relaxes me weirdly. Maybe it's some strange thing about drowning and nostalgia. I think in today's world, when so much terrible stuff's going on every day, it's much better to turn off the news. It's quite nice.
Yes, 100%.
Quite nice getting back in time sometimes.
Definitely. No, I totally agree with you. And feel like I'm on the cusp of something similar, because one of my great uncles, who's the family historian, he's feeling quite poorly these days. And I really feel like if when he goes, it'll be kind of the end of the era, because there's so many things I still wanted to ask him. And he randomly just tells us tidbits of things. It's really a time where I'm like, every day it's like, kind of, if I miss the opportunity, then there's so much that's going to be lost.
Well, it's very important also to get people to write on the back of photos and stuff, because otherwise, I mean, a scowling photograph of some old sort of man or woman, suddenly becomes a lot more interesting when you find out that that was naughty old Uncle Frank or Aunt such and such.
Well, then it happens with jewelry boxes. You get these lovely little handwritten little cards that have just been cut up and to put in, and it would say, "Belonged to my great grandmother, whoever she is," and then the date.
It's nice. But then the jewelry's gone, so you have to I wonder what was in there. Or the saddest thing, those lovely rings where they've got a little inscription inside, which often, I don't know if you guys find this, people are actually quite interested in buying them, where it says, to Ethel from Frank or something, whoever it might be. And you wonder who these people are, and you'll never ever find out who they were.
No, I used to work in a secondhand shop in South London, and obviously a lot of people would end up sort of selling the old 22-carat wedding rings. And you're right, they would have engravings in at the date or a poem or something. You think, oh gosh, wonder what happened to them. Hope they were happy.
So personal. And funny, there's quite a demand for antique wedding rings. People like buying someone else's wedding ring.
Yeah, I mean, the price of gold now. I would buy secondhand if I was you.
It's extraordinary, the price of gold. It always goes up when there's a moment of crisis, and COVID hasn't helped. I mean, it has helped the price of gold, but it's actually bypassed platinum, which I can't get over.
Yes, it's gone past. Extraordinary.
Showing my age, when I first started in jewellery, I was like 16, 17, and you could buy 9-carat scrap, and I mean like scrap that you couldn't sell, for £1.50 a gram.
Gosh.
I should have bought more.
That's the story of the antique jewellery world.
It is.
Amazing.
Should have bought that. Shouldn't have bought this.
Should have bought more sovereigns before Gordon Brown sold all the gold reserves.
No, don't. I know. It's like I always think coloured stones are great things to buy, the natural ones, because they are rare.
They are rare, yeah. I think that's something I always try to impart to customers. You know, as lovely as diamonds can be, if you want a truly special gemstone, go for something like a, you know, a Burmese ruby or a Ceylon sapphire or something. They're, you know, beautiful quality, unheated, untreated gemstones are just, yeah, they're definitely worth investing in.
And they're
They're
beautiful.
only going to get rarer because how much, you know, with all the mining going on, I don't think they're finding as much as they can now.
No, and you know, unfortunately, even though, you know, it's, you know, as pains me to say it, people are leaning more and more into lab grown stones.
They are, but the thing is, I think there's a, you know, it's a bit like a natural, yes, fine, a lab grown banana might taste sort of the same, but would you rather have a natural banana or a lab grown banana? Probably the natural one, because
Yeah.
sort of...
No, I have many a gripe with lab growns, especially if, you know, they're being touted as some sort of ethical alternative. Go and look up where those lab growns are being made, then tell me if they're ethical or not.
Well, it's and also one thing has been forming in the earth for millions of years, you know.
Well, more than millions. The average diamond's about 25 million years old. Yeah. And, you know, it's rather amazing its journey up to the earth from the core. And I think there's rather beautiful about that. And the whole argument about the sustainability of a, you know, synthetic diamond to natural, I would argue that, you know, you're having manufacturing these factories that are, you know, still submit gas into the earth.
Emitting, yes. Well, they are. But I mean, but they should just be distinctly different. This is a natural diamond. This is a synthetic diamond. Simple as that.
It's up to things. I always argue that, you know, one of the pros about antique jewelry and vintage jewelry could be just the simple things secondhand. You're not, you know, going into the sort of, you know, what do you call it, sort of
mass made or sort of more manufacturing. You're not having to make more stuff.
But it's more like you're not paying directly for the that diamond to be
mined or whatever it might be.
So you're just actually reloving something that's
more sustainable.
It's definitely more sustainable, and also you tend to know that the craftsmanship is very, very high, and you know, there's lots of, but of course it's dependent. A lot of my friends, and particularly a lot of my friends, necessarily some of them who you know live abroad, the idea of buying something secondhand is absolutely not an option. You know, they would be the last thing they'd ever do. So it's funny, you know, there's quite some people don't like the idea of antique or secondhand at all, and that's fine as well.
Yep, and that's what makes our jobs fantastic.
I think, but knowing the options, and also knowing what spin to look through, you know, or see through before you buy something is important.
So what we're looking here is we've got my granny on the right, Susan, on her wedding day to my grandfather, where she became Lady Head, and she's wearing a wonderful diamond tiara that she borrowed from a friend. I'm not exactly who it was, but she's wearing a Christian Dior wedding dress, some pearls. She did love her pearls. Some earrings, which I believe is the same earrings, which unfortunately she lost one. And I've had recently converted one of them into a ring for my mother, so she can, because my granny died quite recently, so it's a sort of lovely little sentimental thing for her to remember her own mother by. And I believe I know which brooch that was, which she sold a long time ago, but it's a lovely little diamond brooch.
Well, she took you to Florida with it,
yeah,
to Disneyland. Yeah. Was it Disneyland?
Sorry?
Did you go to Disneyland?
No, she went to she went to America, but she paid to go to Boston, to see a great friend of ours. And she, you know, it was the greatest pleasure for her to do. And then on the left, I'm actually wearing her mother's choker, which was called Winifred Turner. And you've got this, it's rather extraordinary, it sort of looks like a sort of Cartier design, but it's not Cartier.
And it's made of diamonds and velvet.
And so it's got the extraordinary black velvet and yeah, diamonds. It's so unbelievably made. It's sort of like how the bow floats and everything moves.
And it's
I
got
mean,
the
there's
most
an extraordinary amount of movement in it.
and the box from Hennell's is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's from
a-
Hennell's.
Yes, it's a long box.
Oh, beautiful. It's very reminiscent of Queen Alexandra's chokers.
Yes, except she went for the whole neck, didn't she?
She did, yes.
That's because she had a
Yeah,
scar.
well, she did have a, but also she started that whole sort of craze, didn't she?
Yeah.
But Zuleika wore it actually. She was a country life girl in pearls, so she.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
But funny,
and she's actually holding a cake in that photograph.
I am, but that wasn't the photograph they used. I'm not the most. I don't think I'm one of the most relaxed people to be photographed. I sort of like, oh god, get it over and done with. Go on, just take it. So I wasn't very relaxed with this the idea of the photo shoot. And funny enough, the photo they used was when I took the necklace off and was like, did that thing of thank God it's over. They chose the picture where I was probably most relaxed because it was over.
Because the choker wasn't on. Literally, it felt like a choker, didn't it?
It was at that point. It was quite tight, and I've had very cleverly. I've had my jeweler recreate this incredible extension, and it looks like a very weird sort of USB stick. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's made from solid gold, and so that, but it follows the whole shape and everything. It's very clever.
I'd love to see it.
So it extends.
Yeah, it's very effective.
So it fits much more comfortably.
Zuleika went to a party recently and sneezed very, 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 and she felt really it was quite painful, wasn't it, Zuleika? It's not good on the neck, sort of. So actually, it needs to be elasticated.
I don't know how you forget that women of that generation of the from the 1900s onwards would have had to, extraordinary amount of posture to stand.
Horrible corsets and things. One of my cousins invented the bra, which meant that the corset no longer really had to be worn so much.
Oh, well, God bless your cousin.
She was called Caress Crosby, and she was quite a character. And anyway, she basically, I think that everyone was dying to get all these women were desperate to get away from this constrictive type of jewelry and clothes because it really was suffering for your art.
Yeah.
Not good. Mm.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, it reminds me of kind of this issue. My grandmother took off all the kind of metal backings of all of her necklaces and replaced that with like silk ribbons that she can kind of choose the length she wants to wear every piece. And then she took all that metal and made a bracelet out of it.
How wonderful! Very clever, isn't it? Well, I think when Zuleika's grandmother got married in the 1950s, she had a dress made by was Christian Dior dress, wasn't it? And that would have been much more sort of much nicer to wear and their things, and really, and actually, of course, there's wearing the pearls again. And pearls seem to be such an internationally worn jewel, don't they?
It was timeless, completely timeless.
Maybe you think of the great pearls worn in, outside Britain, in India, Pakistan, all over the world, and and they're just such a timeless jewel, aren't they? Pearls, they really are.
They've referred to it as the Queen of Gemstones, don't they? And not a lot of people know that actually there was once a time where pearls were considered more valuable than diamonds. Obviously there was a great revolution in pearl jewelry with Mikimoto, I believe, in the late 1800s in Japan, where he worked out how to farm pearls. But before then, it was a case of diving for pearls, and to get
quite a lot of time to get the pearls. I think the Cartier New York store was bought just in exchange for a single strand of pearls.
Oh, I know, it's extra, and people would leave out of all, if they were quite well off, they'd leave out of all their jewelry. They would name who their pearls went to. And you sometimes these great ropes of them. I'm sure Saad will have loved those descriptions, as will Sam, of what people wore at things like the Devonshire House Ball. And they said, they were wearing ropes of pearls from their neck down to their feet. Sometimes, I mean, it's so expensive.
Well, you often joke, it's the pearl off.
Yeah, a number of times you'll see. You'll go to some event, especially with the older generation. There'll be some dowager wearing a great sort of 6-strand pearl choker. Then there'll be one wearing a 12-strand pearl choker. And who's got the biggest
who's going for the Elizabeth I look? Come on.
And then who's got the largest sort of stonker in the middle of the choker, Chokers, I think, are coming back in as well. You know, I think they really are. And maybe the the Princess of Wales will start wearing some of those wonderful things. I know that you two will probably be very excited, as we all will be, to see that extraordinary collier, whatever is it the Cartier collier or whatever, something which Queen Alexandra had made. And imagining if Catherine, Princess of Wales, wore that, I mean, it'd be amazing.
One?
The diamond one, you know, it goes down a lot.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling that might have been broken down or broken up for something else. I think Queen Mary might have tampered with it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Which is a shame because it was beautiful.
Queen Mary did wear it as well.
Oh, maybe.
Yes. I think she wore it last in the 20s, but then never in the 30s or the 40s. So you never really know with her.
Well, a lot of stuff floating around, so I think, you know.
Yes.
Maybe Queen Camilla will raid the vaults a bit. That'd be very good.
I hope they do. I really hope they do.
I saw someone commenting a few days ago that Queen Camilla should wear the chokers because she has such a lovely neck and she can carry off those big pieces so well.
Yes, she would look wonderful in them. She really would. And I wonder whether we'll see things like the Brazilian, the aquamarine tiara being worn much, or I mean, and would it be wonderful to see Mrs. Greville's. Do you think isn't there somewhere a sapphire? Actually, Princess Margaret wore the sapphire bandeau, didn't she, with a great big sapphire in the middle?
She did, which they think possibly had Romanov origins. People say that it was Empress Maria Fedorovna. Sorry,
Fedorovna, yes.
I think it's too small to be hers. I think it was Princess Nicholas of Greece.
Yes,
that's my little theory.
Yes, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yes.
That is one of those kind of big mysteries because Queen Mary did buy, I think I've counted at least 3 sapphire brooches that she bought from the Dowager Empress's collection after that.
Yes.
2 of them are with the Kents, and one that's, I believe it's been, people believe that's the one being worn by Princess Anne in recent months, but.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. And wouldn't one of the most exciting things would happen, I think, if the Delhi Darbar tiara had the cullinans put back in it for a few occasions.
Oh yeah, but which combination would you want it on high, or would you want it sort of sitting more in the middle?
I think the cullinan 3 in the middle, and so cullinan 3 at the top, or cullinan 4, whatever, the round one in the middle, and the pear shaped at the top.
Oh yeah, that would be a showstopper.
That would be a nice thing for a Dutch state visit to compete with Queen Maxima.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. I know, and that Stuart diamond. Wow. Zuleika and I went to Rosenborg to look around the castle and see the vaults a few years ago now, and they've got an extraordinary sort of very drawing colour, but absolutely magnificent long diamond Riviere there.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that is unbelievable.
It's
and I
stunning.
love Queen Margrethe saying, "We do not count the carats, we count the centuries, not the carats."
And I mean, Queen Margaret, I was lucky enough to get a great spot during her Golden Jubilee Gala, and I got media accreditation. So not only did I see the royals arrive, but I also saw all the Danish nobility arrive, and they have such an extreme wealth of jewels, which almost nothing is known about.
Wow, that must have been amazing. It's
an experience of a lifetime.
Yes, well, you know, you would have appreciated and understood it as well, which is, you know, often if we're lucky enough to go to lovely experiences, you know, after years later you realise, gosh, that was actually quite extraordinary, and then you've sort of missed it.
I don't know. At that moment, I was like, I really have to soak it in. And I remember I had 2 phones in either hand, but I just had them both on record. And I was just like, I have to see this with my eyes in person and feel this moment rather than just focus on recording.
Exactly, I know, exactly.
Because it was just like the stuff of dreams, seeing and me getting the front row seat and seeing them, every single person arrive, was just an experience.
Oh, it must have been wonderful. And seeing people's reaction to wearing these beautiful things.
Oh, yes. I think I was talking to Sam at the time, and I saw Queen Anne-Marie wearing the Greek rubies.
I'm so jealous.
The Greek rubies, yes, those are wonderful, aren't they? Because it's better. It's better than, in a way, I prefer it to Crown Princess Mary's ruby and diamond tiara, because they are actually bigger stones. They're not made out of lots of little ones. The clusters, they're big stones, big rubies, aren't they?
They are, and they're also pigeon blood, so they have that lovely purpley pink hue to them.
Oh, how wonderful.
I know, and if you think about how large that suite is, and there's that many pigeon blood rubies in it. That's one of a kind.
Well, it is, but then I suppose one of the grandest of royal necklaces is the crown rubies, whatever the queen's.
Yes,
rubies.
yes, those ones.
They are spectacular and huge. And then Maxima's wonderful peacock tiara and the malaria one. Oh my God, they're just fantastic.
The Dutch have such a huge collection.
Yeah, the Dutch collection I think is the best of the lot. I mean, no, it's not.
The Dutch have such a huge collection.
Yeah, the Dutch collection I think is the best of the lot. I mean, no, it's not.
I think the Greeks. It's small. It's small, but it's impressive.
What about the Swedish?
I mean, the next day I waited, so I got media accreditation the first day, but the following day I didn't really have any access. And unlike in Britain, where you have to wait if you want to see a royal, even glimpse from afar, you have to wait for hours on end and go in the middle of the night sometimes. I literally stood there for 10 minutes at the front of the palace. Amazing spot, and I got to see Queen Anne-Marie arriving at the banquet, and she was in a car. It was right at sunset, and the emeralds were glowing inside the car because you could see the sunlight hitting them, and it was one of those sights that I'll never forget.
Those wonderful emeralds, those cabochon emeralds and things. God, they're so special.
And they're just massive.
Yeah.
What's the provenance of a lot of their great emeralds in that collection?
Romanov.
Romanov.
Yeah, the first king of Greece married a Russian Grand Duchess. She was a niece of the Tsar, Queen Olga. So a lot of the good stuff does come from her. Although the second queen of Greece, Queen Sophia, she was a sister of the Kaiser and a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. She brought some wonderful pieces as well.
Yes.
That big, massive diamond tiara that Marie Chantal has been wearing it recently.
Yes, that. Which is quite like the Girls of Great Britain one in a way. I mean, it's a grander version of that.
Just yes, a much bigger version.
Those ones with those very, very regular designs leave me slightly cold in a way because they're kind of just like a battlement of diamonds. You know, I mean, they're wonderful, but when you see the crazy looking ones like the Stuart tiara, which is gawky, or you know, I mean, some of them, there's a bit more character to them in a way when they've got these wonderful centerpieces that rise up, like the extraordinary Turn and Taxis sapphire one, which is literally like a wall.
Yes.
I don't know quite how to describe it.
To be fair,
it's like a ziggurat.
Don't get mistaken for just the piece of jewellery. She was a rather extraordinary
Oh,
one.
She is an extraordinary lady. Gloria von Turn and Taxis. I
have an article on her sapphire Beau brooch coming out in 3 days, and I'm thinking you'll be happy to see that because it has a bit new information about this sapphire tiara.
Well, I think she's an amazing person. She knows so much about art and antiques, and she's a very clever person, I think, and just wonderful example of someone who's gone from the wildest fashions to actually some very traditional jewel wearing as well. And we saw recently the tiara she wore at her wedding. We saw it at the Louvre.
I did as well. Yeah,
it's good, wasn't it?
Yeah, right next to Empress Eugenie's, well, it is Empress Eugenie's tiara, isn't it? And it was just next to the beautiful pearl and old mine cut bow brooch, not bow brooch, just a brooch. Oh, amazing!
And all those lovely jewels from the Duchess of Angoulême. Oh my God!
Yeah, but I think me and Saad have said this in a previous episode. It's just like such a shame. There's less than 10 pieces here. That's all that's left.
I know, it does make
If you imagine what the original would have been.
You go to the V&A and you just drown in the Londonderry jewels there alone, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, that is a secret to tell. A lot of people miss it when they go to the V&A.
Oh yes, the V&A.
Don't tell them.
They're upstairs.
Most people just go in and look at downstairs and may go upstairs, but you don't actually pull out. You must pull out the
drawers upstairs.
There is so many.
Well, because the sapphire, Londonderry the emerald parure, is in a drawer upstairs. I mean, I'm sure
alongside it.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And
I remember seeing your story right before my first visit, and that's exactly what I did. I had to go and pull out the drawer, and I literally went searching for that drawer.
Yes, exactly. And these other people said, "Well, are those real?" I said, "Yes."
It's unbelievable.
Just extraordinary. And to think they come like from Vienna back almost over 200 years old at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they were a staggering collection, and you would imagine the Londonderry tiara with its pearls on top as well. It must have been just extraordinary.
Absolutely massive.
Was it her who was just described as the rhino? She charged through London society like a rhinoceros in a tiara? Like it was one of those people, but maybe it wasn't the market.
I think
she was the one who dropped it in the loo at the 1902 coronation.
And then the poor Duke of Portland, who sat on his wife's tiara and said that his bottom resembled a mine at Golconda after that. Anyway,
that one is sadly lost for us. So
yes, that tiara is gone.
Yeah.
Much to the sadness. I saw it.
And speaking of lost jewels, I think Zuleika, your family had an extraordinary emerald ring. I remember you telling us about.
They did have an emerald ring once.
Yeah.
Which king gave
I'm probably going to get the wrong king now. But
I'll look it up.
Okay, related to both. But it's I'm pretty sure it was James the. Was it James the First?
Well, it would have been in the 17th century.
So my ancestors, the Earl of Rochester, who probably more famously has been played by Johnny Depp in
No.
Liberty.
Yes.
And
that's your ancestor.
Yes, yes, it is. It's
wow.
Boy. I mean, famous for. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know him, he's sort of famous for doing sex poems and things, and he was great fun entertainment.
He's famous for all of
that.
Yes.
And yeah, so
he was a very, very naughty man.
So basically, well, in Rochester, and it's still there. I think it might be the bank. It was Barclays Bank when I was last there, and this was about 5 years ago. So
he entered. Zuleika, here it is. It's on.
Yeah.
He entertained King James II and his small court.
Oh, yes,
and the king was so surprised with his hospitality. He presented him with a wonderful emerald and diamond ring, which the sadness of it is even in a portrait of one of your much later ancestors, so much more recent ones, and it was worn by I think a great aunt out hunting or something.
Yeah, I think it got lost.
It was lost abroad,
hunting.
sadly, and it must. I suppose it must have been a sort of 8 or 9 carat columbit, emeralds surrounded, and it was engraved on the back, and God knows what. So it would have been quite a nice thing to have. But anyway, it's gone.
My God, can you imagine an emerald of that size in the 1700s?
Yes.
It's like the emerald watch from the Cheapside Hoard.
No, in the 16th, it's earlier than that. It's late 70s.
Yes, it is, yes.
Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, and they used to wear it. He used to wear it as a sort of a thing to put his scarf through or whatever, like a stock pin, but sort of equivalent out hunting. And actually in the portrait, he's wearing it on his pinky, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
He obviously was still proud of it. And then there was another ring given by by another rod. Then there's another one given by the Duke of Nassau, of amethyst and diamond one.
Yeah, because it's slightly strange. Funny enough, with is my granny here, Susan. So she is directly is also related to James the Second.
Yeah,
well, maybe I'm getting
James IV of Scotland. I get
it's James of Scotland. I keep getting stuck between the two.
And Bonnie Prince Charlie.
But anyway, the point is, it was his daughter married off into our family, and so she's related, direct ancestor of King James the.
Yeah, but along with thousands of other people.
Yeah,
but sadly,
I'm a bit more diluted.
Very
2 generations later.
I'm afraid you've married into good trade stock here. So, but it's who is it? It's from I've got it here. She was descended from James II of James II of Scotland, and via Mary Stuart, Princess of Scotland, who married the first Lord Hamilton. And
wow.
So works out. And then my granny, like a lot of people, if you can trace it, which most people can't, but a lot of people are descended from, is just sort of descended from lots of Plantagenets and people like that. But people were aware of it in the old days. People did. Genetic memory was long, for all these associations, and you have these people would keep their noses very high in the air for many generations.
And it was funny enough, my family's incredibly proud. My cousins have got it in Scotland still. They've still got. Apparently, it is Bonnie Prince Charlie's wig.
I know, but I think there are probably quite a lot of those.
It's literally just a white wig, by the way.
It's probably one from a costume.
But it literally is in a glass case and very well protected.
Yeah, but the emerald was the real deal, and it's a great shame that but at least least there is a picture of it. There is a painting of it, so that's a really nice thing.
Wonderful.
That is still, and it will be somewhere. It's probably in a field somewhere in Europe, in mainland Europe somewhere. That's where it was dropped.
Well, they keep digging up Tudor jewellery here in the field, so you never know if anyone comes across a 9-carat emerald.
Well, that's true. But one of my cousins dug up the Sutton Hoo treasure, and they made a film about her called The Dig, and she then gave the entire hoard to the nation. Not one. Her sister apparently said, "Can't you even keep a nice gold buckle?" Nope, it's all going to go to. And she was a spiritualist, and she believed in ghosts and things. She'd actually
probably thought they were cursed.
Well, she'd seen a ghostly procession to the mound, and that's why she excavated against all the experts. Said, "Oh, don't excavate. There's nothing in there," and she did. And I think she was very, very much believing in ghosts. And so I think if she had kept the jewelry, which was the one of the Danish government or something offered her £500,000 or something, or £250,000 in 1940 for it, and she said no, it's all going to be given to the nation.
Oh, how wonderful! All that beautiful lapis lazuli work from the period.
Pyramids. And luckily, she had Princess Louise came to tea to see it, but luckily Queen Mary didn't.
Oh God!
Having said that, if she had, there might be 1 or 2 bits in the royal collection. But yeah, she luckily didn't come along. I mean, it would have been very nice, of course, but I think she often would go away with a gift and things. And I think apparently the lady in waiting would have to send them back.
Yes, we've all read about Queen Mary's enthusiasm for collecting.
Well, yes, exactly. A great enthusiasm.
Speaking about collecting, so you both come from such rich kind of family heritage, but you've also acquired some new antique pieces yourself, like this diamond necklace.
Yes, this we acquired, and it's lovely because it came from an Irish family, and I think it was made in about 1905 or something. And
no, it was extraordinary. Again, when the conversation we was having earlier about boxes and their provenance, and in the box, the maker, which I can't remember the maker now.
Hamilton, something
Hamilton. Anyway, point is they were only based in Regent Street, and this box said Regent Street for about 3 years. So it basically dates between 1905 to 1908. So
and it turned out that the family who'd owned it, he'd been High Sheriff of the county in Ireland during that period. So I think what they did, they had some nice diamonds. They also had some wonderful emeralds, which was they were sold at the same time. So I don't know who got those, but I think they'd had a connection to I don't know, historically to the East India Company or something like that. So there's some lovely diamonds, all sort of old mine cut diamonds. Is that correct? They are.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's lovely because when it's in its box, it looks like a big bow. It's beautifully presented.
Yeah, and it's got amazing sort of knife edge
setting.
Setting. It's absolutely stunning. It sort of floats. You can
and one person said, "Oh well, it's a shame it's not a full Riviere without the knife edge." Yeah, well, I'm glad it wasn't because we wouldn't be able to buy it. But it's a lovely thing, and so it can be worn in many different ways. I mean, traditionally, it obviously should go around the neck, but Zuleika's worn it around her head. She wore it. We were very lucky to go to a reception at St James's Palace and actually presented to the Queen Camilla, and Zuleika wore it pinned with an invisible thread to her shoulders, and it looked very nice. And then Camilla wasn't wearing any diamonds at all, so it actually looked a bit over the top.
So, yeah, for once, I actually was slightly more overdressed than her, which made me feel slightly.
Except your dress was from a charity shop.
Yeah, but
so
that's
well,
true.
not charity, but sort of shop nearby. So I think the dress was So
what jewels was Camilla wearing?
She wasn't. She was wearing. She was just wearing a couple of little bracelets and obviously her wonderful engagement ring, I think. And then she was wearing some, I think, modern earrings, and she was wearing a top with a high.
Some sapphire earrings.
Oh yes, maybe, but nothing. She was feeling a bit under the weather. I think she had a cold, so she was probably just sort of just not over. But there was some extraordinary jewels on display. I mean, there were some patrons of the orchestra it was in aid of, wearing some extraordinary grand things.
There was some amazing jewelry.
Yeah.
And I was sort of trying to work out my way, but
are you like me? You can't help but give everyone mental insurance valuations anytime you're near lovely jewelry.
I was like, is it natural? Is it
Is it
synthetic?
natural? How big is
Yeah.
that? Okay.
big-
I wonder what metal that is.
I mean, even you know, what I'm wearing here, these emerald dropped earrings are Oliver's being very, very naughty because basically the top half, the diamond part, are 100% original,
little diamonds.
1910 beautiful things that would have had. They've lost their drops at the bottom.
Probably they would have had lovely pearls or something.
Yeah, something. And Oliver found. I mean, I think it's because he's married to a gemologist. He's tried to
Catch you out.
catch me out or something. I don't know, trying to one up me or be clever. So he was like, I have bought some gemstones on eBay. They come with a certificate of authenticity, you know, from India and everything. And
I said I bought these big emeralds for £18, so £9 each. Anyway, they're obviously sort of dyed quartz. Anyway, but as a joke, I had them set on real diamonds, and actually, you know, they look really effective. So
I believe they are.
I know.
Yeah, very
So
clever.
they're quite fun. So that now they've got royal provenance. They've been worn to St James's Palace. So
Well, there we go.
So maybe they're worth more than £18 now. Maybe they're worth £20. You know, it's, you know.
Well, they
A few years from now, your children will be going through them and will have no idea about the story, hopefully.
They would have spent any small amount of money they've inherited, and they'll be like, oh, we better sell mummy's emerald earrings, and then they'll get them to the valuation. They'll say, oops, sorry, they're worthless.
Yeah. I know, but I just adore good pace. I really do, and Baker. Well, in this case, they're not technically pace, but it's the same clever effect.
No, I think from the pictures, they look like quite striking pieces, and I love how kind of you managed to wear them on different certifications.
Well, that means they've got Royal Watcher approval, which is that is special.
There you go. So that's another £20.
That's another £20. Great.
I'll send you a certificate.
Oh, lovely.
There was the quote which I just feel has to be said because I think it's just so wonderful that in Vogue in 1930, Cecil Beaton said, even if you had not lost your fortune, you must pretend you have. The chic of one's necklace does not depend on the value of the material, but the genius of its design.
Exactly.
Very true. And I think Carl Fabergé actually said something quite similar. He said he had no interest in a piece if its value was only based on the amount of diamonds and pearls that it possessed.
Well, I think that's so true. And you look at the workmanship of the past, and when you, again, it's like going, why would you buy antique? It's because to have something made the way they made them now would almost be impossibly expensive. You know.
Oh, very much so.
Made things so beautifully, all set by hand, no lasers, nothing.
Enamel. So when you get the enamel art, it's absolutely extraordinary, especially the ones which have had the enamel over some form of engine turned, etching into the metal. It's extraordinary.
It is, and to think that you have to do that process of enameling at least to get a Fabergé quality piece 100 times, and every time it goes into the kiln, the fire, it could crack, and you'd have to start again. I mean, no one in their right mind would do that today. Can you imagine the cost-benefit analysis?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Quite ridiculous.
No, I think this was one of those pieces that it's such a good investment. And I love the negligee part of the necklace because it adds something special than what a kind of regular hair would do.
Very pretty that, and what's nice, it's not actually detachable or anything, so it is just a piece as it is, and the other negligee is nice. I think there's a sort of nonchalance to, or obviously what even at the time would have been valuable stones, sort of set at different heights, and sort of carrying into the Art Nouveau, and it's just it's a lovely effect, and when worn around the head, it looks really very magnificent, and then it sort of almost becomes like a bandeau or something. It's a very effective, I think. Nice way of doing it. Exotic.
Quite modern, despite its age, and I don't think it'll look out of place anywhere else or even dated.
Exactly.
I know, and I've even worn this necklace, and I think you noticed it quite quickly. I wore it with a Riviere of a paste.
A paste Riviere, yes.
And I sometimes wear them both together, and a lot of people can't tell the difference. because under certain light, you know, good paste can be rather extraordinarily sparkly as diamonds.
Yeah.
And so yeah, look rather amazing to you.
And a dear friend of mine used to, she was very amusing. She was at some grand event at Buckingham Palace, and an old dowager came up to her and said, this friend's from Japan, said to her, I'm wearing my mother-in-law's brooch, you know, blah blah blah. It's very grand, comes from such and such. She said, "Where's your jewelry from?" And she went, "Bond Street." So that was the answer. She had it, or she'd say Graf, and she had a huge emerald cut diamond ring. Must have been, you know, sort of 20-carat diamond, or what, a 15-carat, huge ring. And she would wear that on one hand, and then she also had a fake one made for traveling. But of course, inevitably, she never ever bothered to take the fake one traveling. And what she would do at dinner parties, she'd wear them both. Then she'd get you to try and decide which one was real. It was very, very funny.
Wow.
So she'd wear these, both the fake and the real. It was very amusing.
And you've got that friend of yours who's got the most extraordinary diamond drop earrings, but the centre diamonds are actually
they're big cubic zirconia ones, and all the big ones around the side are real. So, you know, I think that's, again, it's great until the next generation wants to sell them, and then you realise it's not quite what you think.
I think the Kents did that with Princess Marina's Girandole earrings. When it came to Christie's, it was just like, the bottom pendants, the cubics.
I read about those, actually, yeah. But the Kents have got Princess Michael of Kent's got some interesting jewelry where she can change those big earrings she can change the diamonds with sapphires and things, and then she's got the Kents. I mean, the Gloucesters, I think, have got the loveliest things out of those.
Prince and Princess Michael have a pretty decent collection of heirlooms as well, bigger than quite a lot of other people.
Oh yeah, they do. But then you look at the Duchess of Gloucester, the Cartier. Was it from Princess Louise, that Cartier tiara?
Yes.
That is utterly wonderful thing. Then she's got some great emeralds. I mean, she's got some wonderful things, hasn't she?
Emeralds, and then they also have a beautiful set of turquoise from Queen Mary.
They do, and the sad one that was sold, of course, was the Kent sapphire Pereira, which was it's now only partly still theirs, isn't it? And the tiara was sold off, and that
I'm afraid the
whole lot went.
Yes, it's no longer belongs to them. It's been with more fine art jewelry since the 1990s.
Oh really?
The rest of yes. Except the tiara, which no one knows about the tiara, and Moira would not answer our questions on those. But I know the choker, the earrings, and the brooch that were left over from the Kent sapphires. They belong to her.
And we still have to her family. Unfortunately, Moira passed away.
Oh, yes, Moira passed away, and they belong to the firm now. But they're not for sale. They intend to keep them as family jewels.
For the collection. Yeah.
They wouldn't even let me have a look at them.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, recently Hancock's had the Anglesey tiara, didn't they? I don't know if that's
they did. Yeah. Yes, we saw that, didn't we, Saad, when we were at the Sotheby's exhibition?
Oh yeah, that fantastic exhibition. I mean, that was amazing.
I mean, I saw Oliver and Zuleika the day after, the day you saw the Sotheby's exhibition. So
incredibly exciting, the Sotheby's exhibition.
I thought that was probably one of the best curated exhibition for tiaras I've been to.
It was, but some of them worked bad. The lighting of some of them wasn't ideal, or the position.
The William one was the worst one of them all.
Was that the one that was face down?
Yes, it looked like it was falling over.
Yeah, that was. I think someone heard me and Saad going, "You can't even see it."
And the Spencer tiara was sort of very hard to see.
It's a lot smaller than people realise.
But the Baclou jewels were wonderful to see.
Oh, I think both me and Saad, our hearts stopped when we saw the belt.
Yeah,
because we were just discussing their jewels. I think,
and then we just went, "Is that the belt? Oh my god, that's the belt!"
Yeah, and it was very interesting seeing the Devonshire and the Derby tiaras near each other. Because one of them's such the little sister of the Devonshire one. It was fascinating seeing that. And then the Henderskelf one, if that's how it's said correctly, I don't know, the one from Castle.
The Wake one. Yes.
Yeah, like one of those wonderful Japanese paintings of the sea. God, it was so beautiful. Unbelievable.
So we've been having such a fun conversation on kind of talking about our own jewels and all of Zuleika's amazing jewels. What do you think are kind of the hallmarks of creating a collection for people that are starting out?
The hallmarks for curating a collection starting out, I think, by quality, even if it's very small, try and buy quality, because it's an investment as well as something that's lovely, and buy something that's wearable, slightly timeless in its style.
I think, funny enough, I'm going to slightly use a quote from my own father, because although he was talking about art, I still think it's so transferable into jewelry, because he said, never buy art bad art from a good painter, sorry, rephrase that. Never buy the worst from a famous painter or good painter. Buy the best from a worse painter. What he means is, the best quality, the best style,
or maybe not worse, but buy the best from something unknown.
Unknown. But it's not. It's about your eye. You should learn to trust your eye. And when you go around to art fair or jewelry fair, or whatever it is, or whether you're going into some place like, let's say, Gray's Antiques in Bond Street. The point is, there's a huge amount of jewelers in there. But when you go in, you tune to different tastes and styles and various things, and you then also. I always say, take your budget out of the equation when you're looking, because actually you'll start realizing what you like, and actually sometimes you'll be surprised that some things are a lot more affordable than you think.
Yes.
And and if there is a bit more, it might be worth saving for that particular thing and really truly treasuring something, rather than just buying a whole load of little bits and bobs.
And also don't feel that guilt where if you've bought something you love, 5 years later you find a similar thing even better that you love even more, then you can sell the not so good one, or tastes change. But I think to buy something you love, something that's intrinsically valuable, perhaps, so go for maybe colored stones or something that's incredibly beautifully made. I mean, like these earrings we're here, actually, these earrings we've got, which we bought relatively recently in our stock, but they're 1950s, beautifully made, quite a lot of diamonds, but they're very wearable for men and women, and they're versatile. So earrings as a brooch.
They're clip-on earrings, but if someone bought them and wanted them to just be pierced ears and they didn't want clip-on, I always keep earrings as clip-backs, because actually you'd be surprised there's still a lot of people who don't have pierced ears. But in this case, what's clever about it is actually they can be clipped on to a lapel
or the top of a dress, or I mean, they're just
your friend Henry Conway wore them on his cuffs.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and they were very effective. So something like this, I think, multi-purpose jewelry is like, often in the old days, if someone was getting married, the bride's father might give her a piece that was multi-purpose, classic, and you get 2 for the price of 1, or sometimes 3 for the price of 1. So I think it's good to start with something which is multi-purpose. And of course, these could even be hung actually off a chain. We hadn't thought about that. These could easily be hung off a white gold chain, a single pendant. So multi-purpose, that's a good way to start.
Definitely. And these are such extraordinary pieces, and on that kind of same range, you can, like your velvet choker, you could put them on a piece of velvet or something where it's a choker or it's a bracelet, and again, a few more purposes.
Yeah, exactly. And they're beautifully made. And I think a key thing is the backs. If you're looking at jewelry, and I know Sam would back up on this, that the backs should be just as well made as the front, in good quality jewelry.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And that's usually how you can tell the difference between a handmade piece and a mass-produced piece.
Because they couldn't get away with it being badly made back in the day.
No.
I don't understand why a lot of the trade just aren't being honest about Art Deco, because everything is Art Deco, and it's something historically there can't have been that much produced stuff,
the Art Deco period,
like you see in the market today.
I don't think it's about a question of being honest. It's about just saying, I think it's an umbrella term, Art Deco.
Yeah, it's probably just like, I don't know, Art Deco, that sounds good.
Yeah, or Art Deco style, because actually it's quite hard to tell. But of course,
it's not that. It's just what I mean is people should pick up the 50s, because the 40s, 50s, and 60s is we saw it slightly earlier with our grandparents and things, but is that it's the same style, but it's just a little bit bigger. It's a grander. It's
more joyful
you know,
sometimes, you know.
something rather more
Yeah.
effective.
You think after the war, you know, these sort of jewels would have been worn at cocktail parties and things, but people who were just wanting to sparkle and have fun and I think that's why it's a lovely period in jewelry, 1950s or mid-century as it's called, which sounds slightly less romantic.
Yeah, these look absolutely spectacular, and I think talking about kind of other pieces that you offer, you have such a wide range of styles and different kind of eras of where the pieces come from.
We're very kind, Saad. You know, we've been enjoying. We started in a very small way 14 months ago, and Zuleika was very fortunate, and she had the most tremendous coaching and encouragement from my mother, who's a sort of jewelry historian, but also been in trade for a long time. And so and I've through that learned to spot quality and design, and also we've had to try and have a wide range of prices to suit really our friends at first budget. You know, some people want to splash out on an important piece, or you want a lovely effect for cheaper, so there's a whole mixture of things. So like top left, we've got a lovely pair of one of a pair of clips which we bought. They're French and with lovely natural rubies and diamonds and 18-karat gold scallop shells. We love scallop shells because that's our emblem, isn't it?
I know, exactly. I do. I think they like scallop shells.
They are a little bit like scallop.
Again, they're clip-ons.
Yeah, and they're
champions.
And they're lovely. There's quite a modern effect, you know, even though they're 100 years old. Then the big brooch next door. Again, that can be a pendant or a brooch. Henry Conway's worn that.
It can be worn the other way.
Or the other way around, and it's fun and quite sculptural. Then you've got that little Century box with the guards officer there, and that's a lovely thing, and it's beautifully made, and made by a sort of well-known jeweler. And it's just a little miniature charm, and that's something with quite a specific appeal.
They're actually one of my favourite things is the old-fashioned charms. But when was that made? Like the 50s or 60s?
Yeah, it is. It's actually, believe it or not, it's a George Jensen one.
Yes,
wow.
It's actually rather lovely.
Sweet of the little guard, and it moves.
And he moves.
And he moves. Oh, I love articulated charms.
Absolutely.
I love them. You know, again, talking about things being mass-produced, charms like that would have been, you know, a craftsman would have had to enamel that themselves with the blue and the white and get the feathers correct. And I bet, you know, the little guy's probably got an expression on his face.
Probably, yeah. He's probably like, "Buy me now."
Yes.
Well, that's what we wanted to say, but yeah, I'm sure someone will love it. But it is very special. Maybe now with such a royal year. And then the brooch top right we bought. It's also a French brooch. I mean, Zuleika wasn't so keen on it. I love it, and actually, it's probably going. It's a disco ball. It's over 5 carats of diamonds, and because they're rose cuts, and it's you know, if it's brilliant, of course, it'll be much more. But actually, that sort of brooch is quite an affordable thing and have a real statement. And that's actually where that's on a men's jacket there. Then the brooch middle row on the left is a black and white pearl, which is always a lovely combination. Sort of.
You originally actually bought that for me because.
And then Zuleika decided she wouldn't wear it, so.
No, it wasn't that. It's so my name's Zuleika. I was named after a book called Zuleika Dobson, which is also known as the Oxford Love Story by
Max Beerman.
Max Beerman in 1911, and in it she wears one white and one black pearl earring. And so Oliver thought this was, you know, a sort of nice little
nod to that
thing, and I just
you just don't wear it, do you?
I just don't wear it, and so that's a part of the reason.
It's a love. I always love the combination
of made.
Yeah, pearls and diamonds, and
again, it's got that sort of incredible sort of knife edge where it sort of floats. So it's
and
amazing.
That lovely Edwardian garland swag type style. So it's a very pretty. And then the next one along is some negligees. We thought that was very beautiful with these big amethysts. It is, and it's again, if someone loves amethyst, we're hoping that we got quite a lot of amethysts. We love it if someone loves amethysts. But maybe the great royal amethyst Perreur will make an appearance at some point, and then they'll rush off the shelves. And the next,
King Charles did actually say he sort of lamented that the Queen never wore the Kent amethysts, and he tried to encourage her to wear it, but they weren't her thing.
Well, I think you guys, Saad and Sam, you need to encourage the royals to get the amethyst.
Yes, 100%.
And then the next ones along are these lovely as usual pendant earrings with the cabochon, the garnets.
They're Holbein-esque
frills, and they've got that
sort of Holbein-esque with amazing fringe.
The fringe, yes.
At the drops at the bottom, and
we love
rather amazing cabochon garnets, which are extraordinary.
And it's all articulated.
Foil at the back, which gives this insane glow. You don't see it in that photograph, but there's certain lights where it's
fab.
So you can imagine why they were so attractive.
And you imagine those Winterhalter portraits and things.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
And there's actually a big garnet that goes with it, necklace. And then the little brooch on the right is silver and blue paste and enamel, and it's such a lovely design. It's sort of
sweet.
It's very, very pretty, and that's, I mean, that very reasonable to buy. They're lovely things. Bottom left, very good pair of deco cluster diamond earrings, and it's very good to have some pairs like that. I mean, of course, they're sort of more expensive, those sorts of things, but they're a lovely effect.
They've actually on such a brilliant setting for the ears, because they're I've suddenly forgotten what they're called, those earrings.
I don't know. You know more than me.
me.
Well, anyway, they're very comfortable.
Drops.
They go and hinge. Oh gosh, hinge. My brain's gone blank. Anyway, they're very, very secure once on.
Yes, which you don't want them to fall off.
Goes once they've gone through the hoop.
Yeah. And then the little brooch next door is the one which we saw Martha Sitwell wearing, and that's a lovely floral spray, again from the 50s, really, really beautifully made. It's like a frozen leaf and flower, in the frost, and a really pretty thing. And also women could wear that because it's small enough for a guy to wear on their lapel, sort of really smart. And then the ring next door is the Moire Étoile, or the crossover ring, which has got lovely diamonds, old mine cut diamonds, and we thought,
so lovely.
And it's really, really lovely color. So we like those, and actually very, very popular, these crossover Moire Étoile rings. I mean, so many people get engaged to them now, or choose them as presents, because of course there's you and me. It's a lovely, lovely sentiment. And then our sort of treasure of our stock, really, which again, it's something which Zuleika doesn't wear. And it's the most wonderful thing. It's about 1910, this bracelet bottom right. Every single one of those rubies, apart from one, is certified Burma ruby. The other one is Thai. So it's very funny. So we've got the very funny sort of lab report back. And there's 12 sections. It's all articulated, and it's got the Russian marks, pre-revolution marks, and it's a lovely thing. And actually, I think if one had reason to, it could be the most lovely bandeau as well. It's all articulated.
Literally each section has got a very slight curve.
Yes.
And it's so beautifully
and it can
made.
it can be shaped like a semicircle, like a rainbow when you lay it out. So it's a lovely thing. So we've always tried in a very small way to try and buy the best of whether it's the best important piece of jewelry like that bracelet, or the much like the little charm of the soldier. Try and buy the best of something which is just beautiful and wearable and attractive.
But also we buy it because we generally sincerely like it, and hope that someone else tunes into our eye and finds what we like.
Because Sam, I think you're probably, well, I agree with this. When with a shop, whether it's online or in person, it's really a curated collection of jewelry, isn't it? And people buy into your eye.
They do, but the problem I always find is I never want to sell it. It's mine, but I have to sell it because that's the name of the game.
That's rather important, exactly, for the heating.
It's just, yeah.
But then I think back to the idea of on the side building a collection, which again is lovely because it's worth something if you ever have to sell it. But at the same time, it's a great pleasure to wear.
If someone wants what I call a safe investment, then go for something that's a bit more solid gold, because the weight of the gold will always only just go up, and colours also, I feel, echo that. They're only going to get rarer, and so yeah. Sometimes it does slightly come down to the material, but I also argue that really good costume jewellery can be just as good, and I reckon they're only going to get rarer.
Well, before Christmas we had our first pop-up, and we had a lot of Trifari, quite a lot of Trifari, and including one magnificent parure with a bracelet, necklace, earrings, or demi-parure, whatever Saad would say. I'm probably saying it wrong, but and that was, I mean, the Trifarian things leapt off because people, I think we're in that period a bit like after the war, where people are wanting to sparkle again and have fun, because we've had, one way or another, the world has had 2 or 3 very difficult years, and
especially with COVID.
but not just COVID, so many different things. And I think we're all due a bit of fun.
Mm.
And jewelry is fun. Jewelry is fun as well as an investment, and also something, as we've seen through the wonderful Royal Watcher blog and things. And of course, that's an extreme example of royal jewels, but things that are passed down through families and are imbued with a sense of importance and integrity from being worn and passed through the generations. And it's a wonderful thing to invest in, I think.
And I think one of the biggest advantages of jewelry, in my opinion, is it's a very portable piece of wealth that with property and kind of other investments like cars and stuff like that, it's quite difficult to get rid of them when you really need the funds. And with jewelry, you can just go to a shop and get the good valuation, especially with gold, but with other stuff as well. And you can move it quickly at a time of kind of strife and make the most out of it.
Absolutely, and that's why some of these Russian jewels are still in collections over here, isn't it? Or because they were
the only things they could get out, yeah.
Get out, sew them to something, and of course the most tragic example of the poor Grand Duchesses in the Revolution, and that awful image, of such a dark image of bullets ricocheting off them because of the jewels were sewn in. And it's
yeah.
And these, yeah, and these jewels will be here far after any of us are here, you know.
Yes. I mean, kind of similar thing happened to my great grandmother when she was kind of fleeing her home back in the 40s, that she really escaped with all the jewels that she had on her person. And she remembered wearing 3 different outfits, one on top of each other, and then sewing the jewels in each layer. And that's what she used to build a new life. It's
extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And of course, and the one thing we forget now in society is that in the past, women were sort of so subjugated, if that's the right word, by the society at the time that they couldn't have money in their own right a lot of the time, and so jewels was the thing that they could pass down to a generation. And if they had a dreadful husband, more often than not in the past, seems to be, they had something to get away and do exactly that. The jewelry was part of their own dowry, you know, a very, very important token sometimes to freedom.
I mean, even Wallis Simpson was heard, even though she'd married King Edward VIII, she was heard to hold on to her jewelry as a source of security.
Absolutely, and so there's so much more to it than just something that's pretty.
Really? Yeah, no, sometimes it was, of course, status as well. When you think of someone like Catherine the Great, with her.
I mean, so much of it was status.
I just love one fact about Catherine the Great. It's probably one of my favourite things, which is that she had a horse called Diamond.
Yes, well, you don't want to go on about.
I was about to say we're not going into it. It wasn't that horse, was it?
I hope it wasn't that horse. Yes.
Don't Google that, children. Do not Google that.
I hope, because you read quite a lot into that, you know. It's called that. Anyway, we won't go there.
We won't go there.
That would be a totally different relationship with diamonds.
Yes.
Yes.
It might become the nightmare.
Yes. It's too much.
And where can people go and buy all this jewelry?
Well, if they'd like to see or even just have a fun look at what we do, Zuleika has created a beautiful website which also hopefully transports people into the world of jewelry a bit, the different collections, and ours is called Parkin and Gerrish. So Zuleika's maiden name and my surname, and her late father was a great art dealer, Michael Parkin, and then my mother is a brilliant jewelry person too. So we're lucky to have this
two strong names.
Two strong names, and so Parkin and Gerrish, P&G.
And it's parkinandgerrish.com.
And it's Parkin without a G. It's not Parking and Gerrish, because that would be something quite different. Parkin.
We'll have all the links in the description on YouTube and also on the Royal Watcher website and any other streaming platform.
You're very kind, Sam, and it's wonderful what you do with the Royal Watcher, because it's just so fascinating, and your meticulous research into, and I know it's ongoing research, sometimes something comes out of the woodwork that something completely different appears of research, and it's wonderful what you do. So thank you from all your fans, which very much includes us.
Thank you. No, and Sam also does quite a lot of wonderful research on her website, the Beau, and we really love to get notes and everything.
Fantastic as well. I mean, in YouTube, you're quite a dream team together as a duo. My goodness.
Thank you.
A match made in heaven.
Perfect. So talking about Zuleika, what about you, Oliver? You are quite you've done architectural history, I believe. Yes.
Yes. Well, I started out as a singer, which I still do. I'm a countertenor at the Guildhall, and then I got involved and ran the Young Georgian at the Georgian Group for 15 years. And the Georgian Group, actually, the King is the patron of it, and he's always been incredibly involved and brilliant at saving our built heritage. And the Georgian Group was founded in 1937 to try and stem the extraordinarily dreadful wave of demolitions going on of our 18th century heritage. So I got very involved in that when I was 19, and I started writing for Country Life magazine when I was 22. And I don't pretend to be an academic at all. I have a great interest, but I believe that my role is if there is a role, is to encourage other people in learning about our amazing heritage and to make it accessible. So I then went to Cambridge, did a master's in architectural history, and I'm very involved. I lecture quite a bit in America, the Royal Oak and the ICAA, and I lead tours, private tours or charity or museum tours throughout Britain for various private clients or for charities or museums. And I do a lot of work with my partner in crime, Lady Caroline Percy, or Caroline Percy is an interior designer and consultant, and from the Percy family home, Zion House, which you can see here, which was one of Robert Adams' greatest achievements. He remodeled the house for the first Duke and Duchess of Northumberland in the 1760s to 1770s. And on the left, you see the state dining room, and on the right, the magnificent hall, which was remodeled from the earlier Elizabethans of Tudor Hall. And you see Adams' amazing ability to create a sort of such organization within a large space. You know, the ceiling and the floor, they reflect each other. You've got wonderful sort of apps on the far end. You've got different motifs everywhere. And if you haven't been to Zion House, you must go. And what we do there, we run something called historic decoration, where we explore sort of all aspects of historic interior design, because we believe that to know how to design now, or have the greatest enjoyment of learning to study design now, is to understand the past and the grammar of the past when they came to design great spaces like this. So that's my other great love, is buildings. And we had our first Parkin and Gerrish photo shoot in the Great Conservatory at Zion, which was a building which Prince Albert went to see before he came up with the Great Exhibition and things. So another historic building.
And often mistake it for Kew's Gardens.
Kew Gardens, yes, it's all very close to Kew Garden. I mean, what's remarkable about Zion, it's 10 miles from Marble Arch, you know, and it's still a landed estate that's been in the same family for more than 400 years.
And it's used for various films,
filming,
Bridgerton,
yes, lots of different things.
I can't even remember that one with the girl with the kill. She kills people.
Oh yes, so harlots. Yeah, anyway, lots of different things, but it's a wonderful place. So I'm very lucky. My life is spent around beautiful buildings, music, and jewellery, which is very nice. And we also have 2 children and a dog, so we're busy.
Very, very fat dog.
Very ideal.
Well, we're very lucky, and very lucky to have the chance to see and hear beautiful things. So that's very nice.
Wonderful. And so you also do a bunch of tours around the country.
Yes, I do. I organize them sort of on a sort of private basis. I put together, people get in touch, and I put together tours to private houses around the country, and you know, sort of really get into the collections and hear from the people themselves. And what I'm very conscious of is that my clients are guests rather than tourists, and that's a very, very important line, that the people go away having made new relationships with people, created new contacts, and seen some of the extraordinary heritage this country has for its country houses and their collections built over so many centuries.
They're extraordinary, these tours, because you can go to someone's house. It's just they've literally just bought it about a couple of years ago, and this is what they're doing to it, and it's been in someone else's family for
Well, for
400
example,
years or something.
Waterton Hall, which we've just been to, and it was built by Robert Walpole's younger brother Horatio, and that's been bought by an extraordinary combination, a great couple, Peter Shepherd and Keith Day, and they've restored it in the most meticulous fashion, and they've reassembled the estate. And I think what people find fascinating in this country is that it's a living heritage, the country houses, whether they're still, as is often the case in the families that built them, or have been there for a few hundred years, or they've been taken over and given new life by people who are brave enough to do it, because it's a great challenge, the heritage in this country, as in any other country.
And then there's some houses that are, let's say, national trusts, but the difference is you go into the private quarters,
yes,
which is not
well,
accessible.
you want to. I mean, it depends on the client. It depends on the client, and I can't. I have to be there really myself, so I can't. I only can do a certain amount of them through the year. But I'm glad to say that it's been busy, because post-COVID, a lot of people have really realized the importance of travel and seeing places and the escapism of going to a lovely place. And perhaps again, it's that idea of sort of drowning in nostalgia. The past is sometimes a lot safer than the future.
Exactly. And with you, they have this extraordinary experience of going as a guest rather than kind of walking as a tourist and seeing it from.
I think that's important. It's a bit like Zuleika was saying, with jewellery being conversation starters, and when you have clients for a tour, they do become friends, and more often than not, they really do become friends. They come for another tour, and it's all about that personal relationship with people that you want to have the ice broken quite fast, and then you can all enjoy each other's company and learn about these lovely places, often accompanied by delicious food and music, and hopefully relatively good sense of humours, and it ends up being a very nice week.
There's a lot of jewellery sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. And sometimes, we have these big groups and people dress up beautifully in the evenings, and you have the great joy of sitting at the end of a table in one of these great houses, and all of the guests are dressed wonderfully, and the English hosts are so flattered by the fact people have made such an effort and aren't just wearing a jumper with holes in it, moth-eaten skirts and things.
Yes, that's one of the extraordinary things about kind of British heritage, that so much of it is kind of still lived in, and you get this unique. Same thing with jewelry, that it's such a totally different experience to see things being worn and being used in kind of a contemporary setting than seeing them as like a museum piece somewhere else.
Yes, and it's partly due to the fact that we didn't things like the Code Napoleon, where where by law an estate had to be split up and dispersed equally amongst the next generations. And of course that's fairer, but for us to enjoy going to see these great collections, that has relied partly on the idea of primogeniture, the inheritance often going through the male line, but not always, and now much more commonly left to the most suitable of the next generation. So a lot more women are now taking over the great houses, and so because of this this inheritance being allowed to go the way that the person who's dying wishes it to be, these collections have stayed very much more together than they have on mainland Europe, certainly.
And I think that's sort of wonderful bit. I mean, to use this sort of mad phrase of comparing interiors and architecture and jewelry to cakes, is that these are all just the icings that we just get so much pleasure
Yes,
from.
we do, because you just need a roof over your head and food. It doesn't need to be delicious, it just needs to be sustaining. And you certainly don't need jewelry. But all of these things are the bits that make life go from being just surviving and living to being beautiful, being more beautiful and enjoyed. And from the smallest little piece of jewelry to going to one of these grandest houses, it allows the imagination to run away with itself a bit, which I think is very important.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I think we're about to be wrapping up, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us both today. I think I speak for us both when I say it's been an absolutely amazing conversation, and we'd love to have you on soon.
Very much so. It's been fantastic.
Thank you very much, Saad and Sam, for for giving us the honour to be part of it.
Well, thank you for asking us.
And for all the remarkable work you do, because I can't imagine how much time and effort goes into researching and making the Royal Watcher podcast and the Beau Monde look wonderful. It's a lot of work.
Thank you so much.
The labour of love, isn't it?
Absolutely. Sparkling labour of love.
Yes.
Where can everyone find you on social media?
They can find us at Parkin and Gerrish.
Yeah, and you're Arch Music Man.
Arch Music Man. Architecture, music, and I am a man. So it's Arch Music Man and Parkin and Gerrish.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Pleasure.